Hey everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Silhouette Secrets Plus, and today I'm here with another silhouette tutorial. I am going to be showing you how you can create a couple different card styles that all fall under what's called an Eclipse card. Now, I did a tutorial a couple months back for the Siser Juliet or Romeo cutting machines. I will link those in the description below. So if you do have another cutting machine, you could still use Silhouette Studio to design this if you choose to do so, but I also have that in the Leonardo Design Studio software as well. So I'm going to show you a similar technique and then show you a couple variations on how you can do this. But the biggest thing is I'm going to show you how you can create a template that you could use for future cards, and you can save that and easily use it and save a little bit of time. So let's jump over into the Silhouette software and get started. So the first thing you have to decide is what size card you are going to be creating. So we are going to be doing this as a print and cut. So I'm first going to set up my page. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to choose letter size paper, and then I am going to turn my registration marks on and click on the Restore Default. This is going to give you your most accurate print and cut, and it is what I recommend you get started with. So you can choose the card size that you want. How many you can fit to a page will be determined by the page size that you currently are. The US uses different page sizes and different card sizes than someone that is an international user. So you can adjust this tutorial as you need to. So I'm going to simply draw a standard US card size, which is 4.25 by 5.5. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle, and then I can come up here to my quick access toolbar and I can change the height and the width. I need to unlock this proportions so that I can change my width to 5.5 and my height to 4.25. And that's going to adjust. And with this size, we will be able to get two card bases or two of our card fronts onto a page. So I want to show how we can do that here. If you are creating a larger size, so if I was to adjust this to 7 inches by 5 inches, I would only be able to get one of those completely on this letter size sheet of paper and to be able to cut accurately because of the size. So I don't need this right now. I'm going to delete it. So the first one I'm going to show you how to do is a vertical bar ellipse card. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose the draw rectangle tool again, and I'm simply going to draw a rectangle. And the size of this really is completely up to you and your choice. It can vary by card, it can vary by design on what is going to look best. I'm going to just simply start. My dimension is 0.424. Now, the one thing I do want to note here is you do need space. When we go to put this card together, you are going to be using a 3D foam tape, which gives it its dimension, which gives it the look of the Eclipse. So you want to make sure that you have enough space at the bottom and at the top and on the sides between your rectangles in order to accommodate your width of your 3D foam tape. And I'll go over that more as we put these cards together. But you need to keep that in mind as we are starting. So a really easy way that I was able to do this was if I come over here to my line tool, I can simply draw a small line. I know my tape, if I draw this line and hold my shift key down, it's actually going to be a straight line. I know my 3D foam tape is 1/4 inch wide. So I can change this to 0.25. And then I'm going to use this line to measure. So that's going to work there. If I select my two rectangles here and I were to center that just to make sure, and then I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. I just grab the little green arrow or green box. It would barely fit here, and it would barely fit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just shrink this just a little bit. And then I can select my two rectangles and I can center that. Now you can see here my little measurement line, and it may seem like an odd way to do it, but to me it was fast. So little line here, little line here. Now I know my tape's going to fit. I messed up the first couple times I made this back in March, and I didn't do that. So I didn't have room for my tape not to be seen. Now what I want to do is I'm simply going to replicate this across my rectangle. So I'm going to come over to my replicate panel, and I can simply just click the extra. This one replicates it 3 more times. And maybe let's try a couple more. That may be too many. So I'm simply going to place this one over here for right now. And I might use this little measurement tool again. Just want to make sure that I have enough space, and I do. So I'll move him back over. I'm going to select all of those rectangles in the middle of my card. And I'm going to use my space horizontally. Now, what you can see here is there is definitely not enough space in between those rectangles for my foam tape. So I am going to simply come in here, I'm going to delete 2 of those, and I am going to space horizontally again. Now, there should be enough space here. And again, whatever size card you are working with, or the design that you're working with, this could vary. So it's completely up to you. I'm showing you my design process. So I'm simply going to select all of those rectangles. I left click and drag across all of them. Going to make sure that they're centered horizontally. And then I'm going to hold my shift key down and select this outer edge. This means that only the rectangles in the center, the skinny little rectangles, are selected. And I'm going to group those together. Control G or right click and group. Now I have my rectangle file. I can start my card. So I'm going to come out here and I'm going to fit to window so I can see my whole page. You can keep your little measurement line if you choose to do so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a template file right now. So File, Save As, Save to Hard Drive, and then Save to your location. So then you can save it as a Eclipse rectangle card, whatever you want to call it. And then I want to keep my template intact. So I want to keep it a blank template file. I'm going to come to File, Save As, Save to Hard Drive again, and I'm going to change this. So I'm going to choose Card 1 Eclipse. You can name it whatever you want. And then what I'm going to do is I no longer need this in my card file. I could keep it if I needed to measure anything else. I'm going to come up to my library and I'm going to choose the image I want to add to my card. So I'm going to come up to Library, and then I'm going to select 439787. This is a spring watercolor, and I will have links in the description below to all of the designs that I am demonstrating and showing in the cards. So I'm going to double click on that, and it is going to open. This is a print and cut file. And the first thing you're going to notice is that there's a red cut line and there's a white background. So first, for me to use it in my image, I'm going to rotate this design. So I opened it on the transform panel, rotate design, rotate at 90 degrees. And then I'm going to simply, I can shrink that just a little bit. I want to right click and choose ungroup. I don't need this cut line here, so I can go ahead and I can delete it. I only need this image, and I can simply place this image. I'm going to move it over top of my design, right click and choose send to back. Now you can see to place your design. You can shrink it and scale it as needed, and I'm going to choose to center all of this together. And then I'll zoom in here so you can see this. So this is going to be one layer of our Eclipse card. I'm going to zoom out, and this was the easiest way I found to do this. So save your file. When you're working with graphic images, it's always a great idea, or even any other designs that you're doing, to save your file often. So I'm simply going to select everything on my screen, and I'm going to make a copy. Now my favorite way to make a copy is to hold down my Alt key and drag a copy away. So I can simply drag that copy away. So on one card front, I need the rectangles to be cut out. On this second card front, I do not need those rectangles. This is going to be the layer that is behind this first layer. So I'm going to simply select those skinny rectangles and press, oh, I got to select the actual rectangles. Press delete. And then I can go ahead and I can group this together because you do not want your image to move. So then this is my back layer, and then this is going to be my layer that is popped up on top of it. And then we simply send this as a print and cut. I'm going to go ahead and save my file, and then I'm going to select File, Print. You can check that everything's going to print. Click Print again. This is a dumb Windows thing. I'm going to click Cancel. And then I am going to be printing through my rear tray. So I am going to select rear tray on my preferences. I also like to do preview before printing just to make sure and catch anything before it goes to my printer. Click OK, print. I'm going to get another preview because that's what I selected. And everything looks good. You want to make sure that bottom left registration mark is going to print, and click Start Printing. And then my printer should print here, kick up in the background, and I will grab that as soon as it's done. Now I have that print. I'm going to switch over to my other camera and get this loaded into my machine. I'm going to take the blue protective cover off of my cutting mat, and then I'm going to carefully place my design, crossing my fingers that my cutting mat is still sticky because I've been using it a lot with a mixed media paper. And then I am going to load the left edge of my cutting mat into my machine, load it in there, and if needed, you can hold your mat completely flat while the machine registers, but I typically do not have a problem. So I'm going to switch back over to the software. Once it's loaded into the machine, I'm going to click on the Send tab. I'm going to set up my settings. So I'm going to use cardstock textured. That is typically what I cut with. And then I just need to wait for my machine to pick up my Bluetooth. And it says connecting. Once it has connected, it is going to show these cut settings up here. And we just have to give it a second. So it says auto cut, shows a blade depth of a 3, and then I'm going to click send, and we will switch over to the other camera. Now, once it's done, I'm going to simply lay my blue protective cover from my mat underneath it. I'm going to unload, and then I'm going to flip my mat over, and I'm going to carefully peel the mat away from my cut. This way it will help and not curl the paper. So I am going to carefully, you can see my mat's not as sticky as it once was. So it easily removes. And then I have my pieces that all just fall out. So now this Eclipse card, we can put it together, and we're going to use some foam tape to bump that up and give it a little bit of dimension. But first, I want to show you a couple other designs that you can do in the Silhouette Studio software for this type of card style. Now, we'll get to the assembly part of that card here in just a second, but I want to show you a couple more designs that I have been playing with. I'm going to come back over here to the Design tab, and now you could save this. You have your first design. If you happen to save over your template file, you could simply delete these graphics and you could use that again. Again, I start with this top one because you want to keep the placement of your graphic identically. You want to keep the placement of that graphic in the exact location for both of your cut files. So what I'm going to come up here do is choose File, Open, come back to my Eclipse rectangle card. So this is my template card. And I am simply going to choose File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as my second card. And then I want to show you another design that I pulled in from the library as an example. So library, this one gives you a couple errors when you go to open it. So I wanted to point those out so you knew what to do. So if I click on this one, it is a watercolor spring flower arrangement. So if I double click on this to open it, first I'm going to get a message that says one or more material or action settings are used in this document could not be found. That is not a problem. That simply means that the designer had settings saved for this file and you do not have those same settings. I don't have those same settings. They're not in my software. It's not a problem because we set our settings ourselves on the Send tab. Their settings might not work for us. So we can simply click OK. And then we have our file. So I wanted to show you that. I will have an example of this card at the end with this rectangle as well. And then I have a couple more designs for you that I wanted to share with you. So I'm going to start with this file. I'm going to just select everything, Control C, Control V to this new page. Sometimes I move too fast for it. And I'm going to turn my registration marks on for this page. So in this card, I am going to open a new design. I'm going to open 398289. So this is a spring watercolor greeting. So this is going to be a full card design. I really enjoy the magnolia designs. I have no idea why, but I just like them. So this one here, and you can see when I grab it, the cut line is not attached to the graphic. I don't need that cut line, so I'm going to click delete, and then I can simply rotate this design. And we could do this same design as a vertical card as well. I'm going to delete the center here, and then I'm just going to change my card base. I'm going to rotate that. So if I rotate it 90 degrees, I'm going to design it this way. I can bring this in here, right click on it and choose send to back. And then I could simply place that in there. Now you can see that it is larger than my shape. So I can position it as I want. If I wanted to, I could even make it bigger to make that flower kind of show up around there. And then when I'm ready and I like what I have, I'm first going to left click, drag my mouse across everything, and I want to make a copy. I like to make copies so I have the originals. I'm going to hold my Alt key down, drag a copy away. Now I'm going to come back to the original and select everything by left clicking and dragging. I'm going to open the modify panel and choose crop. That is going to crop my shape. It also, you can't see the cut line, but if I come over here to the send tab, if I were to select this and choose cut, I do have that cut line there. So it's still there, it just cropped that shape to it. If you don't want that, you could choose no cut, and I could simply move make a copy of this original and move it over top. Center that together. Either way, it would work. You could turn the cut line on if you want the red cut line to show there. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to try a different Eclipse style card with this one. So I am simply going to draw a couple circles. There's one. Going to make a copy, hold my Alt key down and make a copy. And I'm just randomly placing the circles. Oh, and when I did that, I copied the background again. Sometimes that can be difficult. So I'm going to make a copy over here, and then I can place them. And I'm not sure that I want my circles to be all the same size, so I can just kind of play around with it. And completely up to you. Design, create. This is just a random circles. So then when I'm ready to go send my card, I'm going to left click and drag across everything. I want to group this together, and then I'm going to rotate it back so it fits on my page for my print and cut. There are other ways you could do this, but this is the way I'm doing it. And you could have a horizontal card, you could have a vertical card, either way. And then I'm going to make a copy of this. Now, in this copy, I don't need the circles, so I'm going to right click and ungroup, and I'm going to click on the circle exactly and delete it. But I want to make sure my graphic does not move. So you want to make sure to select only the circles, and then I can left click and group these together. So now again, I have my card ready to print. I'm going to save this as card 3 Eclipse, and I have one more card style for you. So I'm going to open a new design tab. I'm going to click on the registration marks, restore defaults if needed. And then I am simply going to come back to my previous file. I'm going to just grab this card base, Control C. Whoop, don't do that, undo. Control V, and then I'm going to rotate this back to the 90 degrees. Now, you can use all kinds of different shapes. You can use text. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to come to the library, and in this one I'm going to choose 325607, and I'm going to, this is the file here, I'm going to double click on that. It's going to bring it into my mat. You can see this one is a little bit different size, and it is grouped with its cut line. I'm going to right click and ungroup. I don't need that cut line, so I can just pull that image out, and then I can scale this up just a little bit. You can't scale this one up too much or you lose image quality. So if I can show you here on the screen, I am going to get that little low resolution. So you just want to be careful how large you make that. And then I'm going to left click and drag across that, and I'm going to simply center that. So now I have the base of my card. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click on the text tool. I'm going to type out, click on my design mat and type out happy. And then just so you can see this, I'm going to choose a fill color. So I'm coming up to my fill color panel in the top left of the quick access toolbar. And then I'm going to change my font style. So I want to give this a big, bold font style. And it just takes it a second to populate all of those text styles that show up in my, or that I have installed on my computer. And I'm just going to choose Impact because it's a big, bold font. So for the Eclipse card, it's going to be better if it's a big, bold font. That way you can kind of see the dimension of it. And I can kind of just place this wherever I want. And then I'm going to add, let's see, I'm going to add a little something to it. So once you have it where you want it, going to center everything there. And then what I want to do is I'm going to add a little dimension to this. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose the draw rectangle tool, and I want to draw just a little small rectangle. I'm going to use my text style tool again, and I'm going to type in summer. And this time I'm going to fill this with color so you can see it, and it's actually going to print. So now you could choose some type of font that you would like to use. Let's see if I can find, oh, that one will work for now. This is a brush hours font. So I just simply chose a font. I'm going to center this in, and it really is up to you. Let's see if we have, that one's a little too scripty for mellow. Here's one. We'll use this. So you could choose any color you want. I'm going to zoom in here, and why don't we select that summer, and then I'm going to click on this here. This is my line color, and I'm going to take the line color transparent, and then I'm going to come over here to my fill color, and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, and why don't we grab one of these greens? So then it's going to print and cut green. So I'm going to simply select everything, and then I want to center this onto that little tag here. And I might make my tag just a little bit bigger and then center that. And then once I have that, I can right click and choose group. So I'm going to print and cut this along with my card. Now, I don't want this to print black, so I wanted you to see how it shows up. I'm going to click on it before I go to print, and I'm going to change that to transparent so you can't see that. And then if I zoom out here, I just need the other bits of my card. So these little tags here, if I rotate this, I could fit this little tag on either side of my print and cut. I'm going to print 2 of these. So I'm actually going to make 2 cards out of this. I'll show you 2 different ways. So I'm going to select everything, move this down here, and then we are ready to print this design, and I will show you how to put together 2 different cards with this. So in a short amount of time, we have created several different Eclipse cards, and I'm going to show you how to put those together. Okay, so I have a couple different, the cards that I showed you. So I have 2 of these with the rectangle, and then I have our circle card, and then I have our text card. So I'm going to first start with this. You're going to need 3D foam tape, and again, all the supplies are linked in the description below. I have scrapbook adhesive, a tape runner, and then for these 3 here, I'm just going to simply use a pre-made card base that I have for that same size. I will share in a second how you can make your own card bases. But what I first want to do is I'm going to flip this one over. You want to make sure that you have your design the right way so that it matches completely. And then I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to apply foam tape all over the back of this. And I'm going to speed the video up as I apply the foam tape because you don't need to watch every single second of that. So let's put that together. And you don't need to cover the whole thing. And then once you have all of the tape settled, make sure to press it down securely. I'm just going to remove all the backing. And once that's done, you have tape. You just want to support it so that it pops up on the front of the card. So then you just simply want to place it, and you want to make sure that you have it facing the right direction and try not to stick it down too early. So then line it up with your image and secure that down. And then you have your Eclipse. Gives it a little bit of dimension. Take your card base. You're going to fold your card base. And you can simply use the tape runner. And of course I ran out. So I'm going to go grab some more. Make sure to have a stash on hand. Just had to run out to my studio and grab that. Add it to your card base. Center that on there. And you have your card. So then you're going to do the same thing with this one. I don't think you need to watch me do the same exact steps, but I will have those in the finished photos. This one is going to be the same technique. So I am just going to add foam tape, and I want to make sure to add tape so that everything is supported and nothing sort of falls. And what I mean by that is if I were to, just as an example, this area here is supported, but this area is not. So if you look at this closely, you're going to see that this area has dimension. This area is flat. So you don't want pieces of your card to fall flat. And you can really use any shape. You could use a heart. I've seen some other really cool ones where they used sort of like a barcode where the animal is peeking out. Different cutting machines, you know, the technique is all the same, no matter what cutting machine you're using. It's just a matter of how you create that file. And for all of these, you could simply save that as a template file and reuse that template file for any graphic that you choose to. So I probably have a little bit too much on here, but I'm going to go with it. It's definitely not going to be flat. Okay, and then make sure to line it up again. Now this one is a design that could have been vertical or horizontal. A little bit off here. So trying to do it on camera, but not completely over top of it can be difficult. So there I have that one. I'm going to take my card base, fold it over, and then I can simply add some scrapbook adhesive tape runner to the back and add it to my card base. So there you have another different sort of design. Just something unique. These have been around for years in the die cutting world. A handheld die cut machine with metal dies that people have used. So it's not anything that's new. It's just we can use our cutting machines to do it now. So I'm going to take and show you how you can make your own card base. So this is a simple letter size sheet of paper. If you're outside the US, this may be a little bit different, but of course your card sizes are a little bit different too. So I'm going to take this and this is a 11-inch, so I'm going to cut this down to 5.5 inches. And then I have 2 of my card bases. And the easiest way to make the score line would be to grab a scoring board. This is one I have, but I'll show you another technique as well. So then I'm just going to take and I'm going to score my card at 4 1/4. And then I can simply fold that over. Now, what if you don't have a scoreboard? Not a problem. You could use your paper trimmer, grab some sort of tool, not sharp. You don't want it to cut through. Some paper trimmers have a score blade as well, but take your paper trimmer, measure out 4 1/4, and then simply take your tool and rub it along here. So you could use a bone folder, you could use a stylus like I have here, and then you have your score line. So you could also do this and then make sure you fold it exactly on that line. You could also do this in your Silhouette software, but it's so easy just to do it by hand. So then I have a card base. Now I'm going to show you, put my tools away. I left this one on the cutting mat because it's got a lot of little pieces. Oh, and look at that, I messed up. I didn't turn the cut lines off for my summer. So I am going to have to reprint those 2. Okay, so this just proves that we all make mistakes, and I want to show you how I'm going to fix this. So I'm going to come back over here to the Design tab. I'm going to actually delete this bottom tag, and then I'm going to click on this design, and I'm going to choose Ungroup. I had previously grouped them together, so I want to make sure that they're ungrouped. I'm going to select only the text, come to my Send tab, and I'm going to choose No Cut. So now you can see the bold red cut lines are turned off. When I come back to the Design tab, now I can select both, and I can group that together, hold my Alt key down, and I'm going to send another copy. Now, I don't have to print the entire thing, but I might as well since I'm going to be doing this. And since I am now going to have, let's see here, now I'm going to have 4 card bases. Now I can make 4 cards easily. So I'm going to just duplicate this and move another copy over here. So now, even though I made a mistake, now I have 4 cards that I'll be able to do since I had room here to print the additional tags. So I'm going to click on Send, I'm going to print that, and then we'll jump back over and I'll show you how to put it together. Okay, so I paused the video. I took that off my cutting mat so I could reuse it, and then I reprinted it after I showed you how I fixed that. Mistakes happen to us all. It always happens in a video. So I have this. I am simply going to grab my protective cover. Now I kept this on the mat for a couple reasons. Because these letters are so small, I want to make sure to keep those intact, and you have these little centers that will come into play. So since I've already removed the others from the mat, I'm simply going to take 2 of these off my mat, and then I'm going to use these as an example. So first thing I'm going to do is there are 2 ways that you can do this card. So there are, you can make sure you have all your pieces, and sometimes this is one reason to use a bold font is you have those centers. So you do want to keep those. I'm going to try and put them on, but it'll require a very small piece of foam tape. And then I have my H here. So I just want to remove him. So 2 ways. Glue this down, and then we can pop the letters up. And then the next one, we will glue the letters down and pop the letters up, or pop the base up. So I'm simply going to start with this one. So that is the old tape runner. I'm going to select or start, just secure this and put some in the center if you need to of those letters. And then I'm going to center this on my card base that I just made. And my base is a little bit crooked just because I was trying to do it on camera. So I can refold that when I get done with it. So try to center that as best you can on your card base. And then we are going to take foam tape and cut and add the foam tape to the back of our letters. So I'm going to start with the big part of the letters. Now I'm going to place these letters before I worry about those centers, but you want to keep those. The other thing you could do is you could go into the software before you print, and you could actually make those centers larger by ungrouping the text and then double click on your text. Look, my H moved. And when you bring up the edit points, you could actually drag those edit points and make it a little bit bigger. So there are lots of ways that you could modify this, or you could find a font that has really big centers in it as well, or type letters that don't have centers. There is all kinds of things that you could do. You just want to make sure, and actually I'm going to be using a glue pen in there for those little centers, but I need to know exactly where to place them first. You just want to make sure, and if you do have any sort of kind of non-cut edge there, you can just snip that. Keep a trash can nearby, so when you're finished with all of this foam tape, you can just sweep that into the trash can and clean up your mess very easily. So then I'm just going to use a little bit of a pen tip on a glue pen. I'm just going to sweep this into the trash so I don't dump it on the floor. And some tweezers. And what I can do is I can actually, now that I have those in there, if I have a fine point glue tip, I can just kind of put some glue in that area in the center. And then all I have to do is simply grab my center and place it where it needs to go. Kind of like operation. Make sure you get it the right direction though. That's why I like to keep it on my cutting mat until I'm ready to assemble. And then the last one is my letter A. Get that up in there. And then we have this little tag, so we can simply pop that up over here with a little bit more foam tape. And I've seen it done a couple different ways. So you could place it, you could have placed your happy a little further up. You could simply place it down here. You could place it on top a little bit. Completely up to you. So I think I'm just going to center it right down here. And then you have a little card, a little off-center card, but a little card that you've created. And then we'll move on to this next one. So for this next one, I'm going to grab my card base, and I am actually going to have my letters here. I am going to carefully place them down, keeping all my centers. And this one is the tricky one where we have to put foam tape on the centers. So this one, what I want to do is I'm just going to place this on top of my base. You can see I got my card a little off center here too. Everything is handmade. I'm going to take some washi tape and I'm going to hold this in place. So washi tape is very low tack tape. So if I hold this in place, yes, this is wine washi tape. So if I hold this in place, now I can glue my letters down, and you could use a glue stick or you could use the liquid glue, either one, or a tape runner or the liquid glue. I think I'm just going to do liquid glue. This way you can see where those files or where those letters are supposed to be placed. Get it settled in there. And it just takes a little bit of time. We've created several different types of Eclipse cards. I'd love to see yours. There's all kinds of different options that you can do. Now, once I have this here, I can also go ahead, going to close my liquid glue. This is going to be really tiny. And this is where, after you've done this a couple times, you may want to play around with those centers and make them a little bit bigger. But I'm first going to just put my foam tape down there. I'm just cutting really small pieces of foam tape. This is always one of those things you think of after you've finished cutting the card. Every single time, even though I've done this tutorial a couple of different times, I did it for the Siser cutting machine a few months back, so you can check the links in the description below for that one. And even though I did that, I still forgot to do it. Make sure to check out the other videos on the Silhouette Secrets YouTube channel. I'll have another one where I am sharing my mess ups and how I design a card and play around with it until I get it right. So then I'm just going to use my tweezers, place that on there. Now you can kind of see this one. Kind of see the foam. Here, I'll show you this. So my paper actually separated. If you take a look at the construction of your paper, it's usually layers that are glued together. And I've noticed lately in the last couple years that this Recollections paper has a tendency to separate depending on what it is. So this was a really small piece, and so it's separated. Now I'm just going to put that back down. I just cut it a little bit smaller if I can get it not to stick to my finger. So I just took that top layer. I cheated. Took the top layer of the paper. It's not going to be as thick, but it still looks okay. And then once your glue is dry for your letters, I wouldn't do it too soon. You can carefully just remove this washi tape. And then carefully kind of move your template up. It should not be glued down, but you don't want to rip any of your letters away. Shouldn't be glued down unless your glue leaked. And then I'm going to add foam tape onto the back of this. So I'll speed that up as we go. Make sure to support anywhere in the center here. Then you're going to simply place that back down on top of your design. So now when you look at it, we'll add that here in a second, you have letters cut out and a second style. I'm going to take this and add a little bit of foam tape to it. And you didn't need to necessarily add foam tape, but it gives it a little bit more dimension as well. Put it on right side up, and you can add that there. So you have a couple different styles, and I will share some finished photos. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell for notifications. Also check out all the tutorials on the Silhouette-Secrets blog. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.